The illegitimate son returns. My legitimate heir just threw in the towel the day my dad, George, brought the illegitimate son into the house. I was signing a contract worth $3 billion. Assistant Charlie's call came through. His voice was trembling. Mr. Ethan, Mr. George, you speak. My pen didn't stop. He brought a young man back and said that he's your brother. The pen traced a long ink line across the signature spot. I put the pen down. I stared at the gray sky outside the window. Oh, what's meant to happen has happened. Understood. I hung up and handed the signed contract to the other party. Pleasure doing business, Mr. Lee. The other side smiled like a chrysanthemum. Mr. Ethan is truly young and accomplished. Under your leadership, Johnson Group has boundless prospects. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Boundless prospects? Not necessarily. Back at the company, the atmosphere in the executive suite was strange. Everyone kept their heads down, pretending to be busy, but their ears were probably pricked up like antennas. I pushed open my dad George's office door. There was a young man sitting inside. Early 20s, features about 70% like my dad's. Wearing faded casual clothes, his eyes carried a bit of timidity, but also hid some ambition. A contradictory person. You're here, Ethan. My dad's tone was flat, betraying no emotion. His name is Leo. I didn't look at the one called Leo. I just looked at my dad. So, my dad's brows drew together. He'll be your brother from now on, and he'll join the company to help you. Help me? Funny choice of words. Which department? For now, he'll follow you as your deputy. I almost burst out laughing. Some bastard popping up from who knows where, and he wants to be my deputy on day one? My dad really dotes on him. Leo stood up and a little awkwardly called out, Ethan. I didn't respond. I walked to my dad's desk and picked up his personal seal. Dad, I sold my life for this company. From sitting in on board meetings at 16 to taking this position at 26. I haven't taken a single day off, haven't had a relationship, haven't done anything you didn't want me to do. My voice was very calm as if reading a weather report. Now, I'm a little tired. I gently placed the seal in front of him. This position should go to the capable. If you think he's capable, then let him take it. My dad's expression finally changed. Ethan, what do you mean by this? I turned and looked at the stunned Leo. I quit. Those words left my mouth, and the entire office fell so silent you could hear dust settling. My dad, George, that face that had worn a Confucian businessman mask for years, showed a crack for the first time. He probably expected me to shout, to make a scene, to question him. Like all the TV dramas. Too bad. That script's been used to death. The market needs fresh stimulation. Say that again. His voice was low, with a hint of danger. I said I quit. I repeated it and casually set my six-figure pen on the desk as well. The CEO position and all the projects I'm handling are yours to take from now on, good son. I nodded toward Leo. Leo's expression shifted from shock to ecstasy, but he quickly stifled it and put on a fake, concerned look. Good acting, just lacking in timing. Ethan, don't be like this. That's not what I meant. What you meant doesn't matter. I cut him off. What matters is I'm letting go. Can you catch it? My dad slammed the table. You bastard. Are you threatening me? Dad, you've got it wrong. I smiled. I'm not threatening you. I'm doing you a favor. Haven't you always felt you owed him? Now, you can give the whole Johnson Group to him to make up for your guilt. Isn't that great? When I finished speaking, I turned and walked away. Stay, my father shouted from behind. I didn't stop. I walked to the door and opened it. Outside, Assistant Charlie and a few secretaries crouched like quail. Charlie, here, Mr. Ethan, from now on, Leo is your new president. I patted his shoulder. Take good care of him. Charlie's face went white as paper. I ignored them and headed straight for the elevator. Behind me were my father's frantic roars and Leo's phony consolations. What a show. The elevator doors opened and I stepped in. I stared at my reflection on the stainless steel doors. Wearing an expensive tailored suit, hair perfectly combed. My eyes were dead calm. From today on, things are different. The elevator reached the first floor. I walked out of the Johnson Group building. The sun was just right outside. I took out my phone and dialed a number. Hey, Jake. Ethan, when do you have time to call me? Bring out your flashiest Ferrari. What for? Clubbing. I hung up, loosened my tie, and tossed it into a nearby trash can. A feeling of unprecedented lightness wrapped around me. Johnson Group? Air? Screw that. Today I'm going to do everything I haven't done in the last 10 years. The next trend is seize the day. Jake's Ferrari SF90 parked in front of me, drawing more than a few glances. The scissor door lifted and I slid in. Ethan, where have you just come from? Some negotiation table. Jake teased, looking at my outfit. Just flip the negotiation table. I loosened my shirt collar. Take me to the priciest club and get your hottest girls out. Jake was momentarily stunned, then whistled. Whoa, what's got you so fired up? Nothing. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. I suddenly figured things out. That night, I booked the biggest private room at a club called Golden Glow Club. Drinks kept coming as if they were free. A flock of chirpy influencer models surrounded me. Their perfume gave me a slight headache, but I didn't send them away. I just drank quietly. My phone buzzed nonstop. No need to look. It was my dad and those old men from the company. I put on silent. A scantily clad girl came over, trying to pour me a drink. Mr. Ethan, let me toast you. Her voice was syrupy enough to wring water out of. I used to hate that the most. Tonight I smiled. I took the glass and downed it. Another. I can't remember how much I drank that night. I only remember Jake carrying me home in the end. The next day, I woke with a headache. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painfully bright. I grabbed my phone, dozens of missed calls. There was one more message from Charlie. Mr. Ethan, Mr. George insists you must come to the company today. There is an important matter to discuss. I tossed my phone aside. Important matter? How important could it be? It was probably just to get me to go back and clean up after his illegitimate son. I'm not going. I got up slowly and washed. Then I did something my dad would never expect. I opened my closet and threw out all my expensive suits. Then I called a luxury goods buyer. The newest streetwear brands, no matter how outrageous, give me a full set. In the afternoon, I wore a flashy outfit, drove Jake's Ferrari, and went to the city's biggest supercar club. My dad hated me playing with cars. He said they were distractions that ruined ambition. Today, I was going to have fun. I swiped my card and ordered the latest Lamborghini Revuelto. Paid in full. The salesperson's eyes widened. News travels fast. Just after I paid, my dad's call came through. This time I answered. Ethan, what are you doing? The voice on the other end was full of suppressed anger. Buying a car. I answered lazily. Where did you get the money? Dad, did you forget? The shares Mom left me give a decent dividend every year. Mom died young. The shares she held in the group were long ago transferred to my name. I hadn't touched them all these years. Now it was time. Dad was so angry he couldn't get the words out. Dad, didn't you tell me to learn to be generous like your good son? I think spending money is the most generous thing. Besides, doesn't Leo want to be CEO? As the former CEO, I've got to put some pressure on him. Otherwise, how will he grow? See, I'm really thinking of you. Who isn't still a baby? I need people to dote on me too, right? Heavy breathing came through the phone. I figured he was about to have a heart attack from anger. Perfect. All right, I'm done talking to you. I have an appointment for a spa. I hung up. Listening to the dial tone, the smile at the corner of my mouth deepened. This was just the beginning. George, Leo, are you ready? I'm the director of this show. Over the next month, I became a regular on entertainment pages. Johnson Group heir suspected of being cast aside, frequenting nightclubs, squandering money. A roundup of 7 influencer girlfriends Ethan dated in a week. Lamborghini and models, the fallen life of a wealthy heir. My dad sent people to persuade me, from company veterans to family elders. They practically wore out the doorstep of my newly bought villa. I refused to see any of them. They couldn't get in and could only fret at the gate. In the end, my dad had no choice. He came in person. That day, I was sunbathing by the pool with the newly crowned Best Actress, Sophia. Sophia was someone I'd paid a lot to bring in. Not for anything else, just to act for my dad. When the butler came to inform us, Sophia was lying on top of me, applying sunscreen. Mr. Ethan, Mr. George is here. Tell him to wait. I kept my eyes shut, unwilling to move. Sophia's hands were soft and felt good. "Is this okay?" she whispered in my ear. "What's not okay?" I opened my eyes and looked at her. "If you took my money, you have to do as I say." Sophia smiled and said no more. We lingered outside for nearly an hour before we leisurely walked into the living room. My father sat on the sofa, his face ashen. The ashtray on the coffee table was piled high with cigarette butts. "Had your fun?" He saw me and spoke coldly. "Not yet. We're just getting started." I put my arm around Sophia and sat directly on the sofa opposite him. Sophia played along, nestling obediently in my arms. My father's gaze cut at Sophia like a knife. Sophia's body stiffened. I squeezed her waist. She relaxed quickly. "Ethan, the company really needs you now." My father's tone softened. "Oh, really?" I feigned surprise. "Isn't that Leo pretty capable?" My father's face twitched. "He still needs to learn. Let him learn slowly then. Young people have to pay their tuition sometime." I said lightly. My father wanted to explode again, but he held back. "The project in South District ran into some problems. Go back and deal with it." The South District project. Of course I knew. It was the one I had personally overseen before I left. A cultural tourism project with over $5 billion of investment. It was full of pitfalls that could drown you. I could bet that Leo, that idiot, was being toyed with by the partners. "Dad, you must be mistaken." I looked at him and smiled. "I'm no longer the president of Johnson Group. What do the company's matters have to do with me? That's President Leo's concern." "Ethan," my father finally couldn't hold it and stood up. "Are you deliberately picking a fight with me?" "I'm not." I spread my hands innocently. "I'm just enjoying life. You're the one bothering me." My father pointed at me, his finger trembling. You're truly my good son." He stormed out. Watching his retreating back, the curve of my mouth grew wider. "You seem to really dislike him." Sophia in my arms suddenly said, "You're saying too much." I looked at her, She immediately lowered her head. I pinched her chin and made her lift it. "But you acted well." Next script. I leaned to her ear and whispered, "Come with me to Paris City. I want to buy a winery." Sophia's eyes lit up for a moment. I knew she understood. This show had to be played bigger. So everyone would know that Ethan, was completely ruined. Ruined to the point there wasn't even a scrap left. News of Sophia and me go to Paris City hit the headlines the next day. Ethan travels to Paris City with the Oscar-winning actress, rumored wedding imminent. In the photo, I had my arm around Sophia, smiling like a shiftless landlord's foolish son. We were indeed having a great time. Museums by day, Michelin restaurants by night. In the end, in Bordeaux, I actually bought a winery. Not large, but the scenery was beautiful. On the day we signed the contract, Charlie sent me a message again. "Ethan, the South District project has completely stalled. The partner is claiming $10 billion in damages, citing our breach. The board is in an uproar. Mr. George has been hospitalized." I looked at the messages and lifted a glass of red wine, just drawn from the winery's oak barrel. I took a sip. This year's grapes are good. Something on your mind?" Sophia wore a white dress and sat opposite me. "Nothing." I set down the glass. "Just feel that Paris City champagne is a bit sweet." Sophia looked at me, her expression a little complicated. She was a smart woman. She probably guessed what I was doing, but she didn't ask anything. Our relationship was simple. I paid, she performed. Each got what they needed. "Where are we going next?" she asked. "Back to the country," I said. "The play is about to hit its climax." Back home, the airport was blocked by reporters and packed shoulder to shoulder. Flashbulbs kept popping. "Mr. Ethan, are you and Miss Sophia dating?" "Mr. Ethan, what do you think about Johnson Group's current troubles? Will you return to Johnson Group?" I kept my arm around Sophia the whole time, smiling, saying nothing. Sophia played along, leaning against me with a blissful look. We looked like a couple deeply in love, indifferent to everything outside. The next day, my father was discharged from the hospital. He had lost a lot of weight and looked haggard. He arranged to meet me at the old house. It was the first time I'd stepped into that place since my mother passed away. The furnishings were the same as when my mother was alive, just a little dusty. My father sat in the main seat, and looked at me. Come home, Ethan. His voice carried a trace of exhaustion and pleading. The company needs you. Oh, I pulled out a chair and sat down. What about Leo? He's still young, my father defended him. He just lacks experience. Dad, do you know? I interrupted. That South District project. The partners set a trap from the start. There were 7 traps in the contract. If our person in charge was even slightly negligent, they would fall in. Before I left, I marked all the traps and put them on the first page of the project folder. Guess what? Your good son, did he read it? My father's face turned ugly. He probably didn't pay attention. Exactly, he didn't pay attention. I laughed. Not only did he not pay attention, he casually signed a supplemental agreement. He sealed off our last bit of backup. Dad, this isn't lack of experience. It's stupidity. Stupid and arrogant. Putting him in that position is you personally destroying Johnson Group. Enough, my father barked. No matter what, he is your brother. He isn't. I looked at him and said each word slowly. From the day you brought him home, I had no brother. I also had no home. I stood up. If you want me to come back, fine. But he needs to get out. Get out of Johnson Group. Get out of this city. Never show up in front of me again. And you. I pointed to my father. Transfer all your shares to me. I want 100% control of Johnson Group. You're trying to kill me. My father's eyes were red. You tried to kill me first, I said coldly. Choose for yourself. With that, I turned and left. I knew he wouldn't agree now. But soon, the market needed a final push. And I was best at providing that kind of stimulus. After leaving the old house, I went straight to the company. It was my first return after 3 months away. The front desk and the lobby had several new faces. They froze when they saw me, then started whispering. I ignored them and headed straight for the executive elevator. Sir, sorry, you can't use this elevator. A security guard came to stop me. I glanced at him. He was new. He didn't know me. Understandable. I'm just a former crown prince who's been driven out of the house now. Let him come up. Charlie's voice came through the intercom at the elevator. The security guard hesitated, then let him through. I was the only one in the elevator. Watching the floor numbers climb, I felt nothing. Ding. Top floor. The elevator doors opened. Charlie stood outside, his eyes a little red. Mr. Ethan. He still called me that out of habit. I stepped out of the elevator. The entire executive office felt dead and lifeless. It was completely different from before I left. Where is he? I asked. He's throwing a fit inside. Charlie pointed at the CEO's office. From within came Leo's roar. Worthless. All of you are worthless. You can't even handle such a small thing. What am I paying you for? Then came the sound of something shattering. I pushed the door open. The office was in shambles. Leo was angrily pointing at several department managers and shouting. Those managers were longtime employees of the company. Now they all kept their heads down, angry but afraid to speak. They all froze when they saw me enter. Leo's shouting cut off abruptly. What are you doing here? Panic flickered in his eyes. I came to get something. I didn't look at him. I walked to my old desk. The surface was piled with files, chaotic. I opened a drawer. Inside was the only photo my mother and I had together. In the picture, my mother smiled gently. I took the frame out and wiped the dust off with my sleeve. Ethan, Leo snapped back to himself and shouted at me. Who told you to come in? This is my office now. Oh, I replied, picked up the photo frame, and turned to leave. Stop. Leo rushed over in a few strides and stood in front of me. Make yourself clear. Are you here to laugh at me? Yes, I admitted plainly. You. Leo's face flushed with anger. But you're even more useless than I imagined. I sized him up. 3 months. And you've almost driven a company with a market value of hundreds of billions of dollars to the brink of bankruptcy. You really are something. You're talking nonsense. Leo snapped. The company is in this state because of you. It's your mess you left behind. Is that so? I smiled. Then take your time cleaning it up. I stepped around him and started to leave. Mr. Ethan, Charlie suddenly called after me. He came up, took a letter from his chest pocket, and handed it into my hand. This is my resignation letter. Then he bowed deeply to Leo. Mr. Leo, I'm resigning. Without looking back, he followed me out of the office. Leo was left standing there, his face going pale and red in waves. I knew. The first domino had already fallen. What came next would only get more dramatic. Charlie's resignation was like a stone dropped into still water. It didn't make a huge splash, but it sent out circles of ripples. He was my confidant. His leaving signaled to everyone in the company one thing. Ethan, had cut ties with Johnson Group completely. In the following days, large-scale internal personnel upheaval began. First was Thomas, the director of the tech department, a genius I had spent 3 years poaching back from Silicon Valley. He tossed his resignation letter in Leo's face. The reason was simple. I cannot work under the leadership of an amateur. Leo was so angry he smashed his expensive European ceramic teapot on the spot. But he didn't dare refuse the approval. Because in that genius's hands were all the code for the company's next-generation core product. If he refused, the guy could turn around, take the code, and defect to a competitor. Then Johnson Group's losses would be more than just financial. It would be a crippling blow. Next to go was the deputy director of the marketing department, the chief analyst in finance, several heads of key projects. These were all people I had promoted myself. They followed me to conquer one territory after another. They respected me. But toward Leo, they felt only contempt. In less than a week, nearly a third of Johnson Group's core management left. The whole company was in panic. The stock price began to plummet. My dad called me again. This time his voice had none of the previous anger. Only deep exhaustion remained. Ethan, I'm begging you. Come back. If you come back, we can negotiate any terms. Oh, I was on a private island, sunbathing. Beside me, a newly acquainted Victoria's Secret model was feeding me grapes. Any terms? Yes, any terms. Kick Leo out. Silence on the other end. After all, he's your brother. Dad, it seems you haven't thought this through. I smiled. Then wait a little longer. I'm in no hurry. I hung up and tossed my phone aside. The model leaned over and kissed my cheek. Whose call made you so unhappy? Someone unimportant. I popped the grape she handed me into my mouth. I'm really sweet. Just then my private lawyer sent me a message. Ethan, per your instructions, we have begun contacting those executives who resigned. They all expressed willingness to join the new company we are preparing. I looked at the message and the smile on my lips grew broader. A new company. That's right. I didn't leave Johnson Group to truly slack off. I was going to start anew. If my dad insisted on letting that idiot steer this sinking ship, then let it sink. When it sinks, I will salvage all the valuable parts and assemble them into a brand new giant that belongs entirely to me. That's where the market will tilt next. Not inheritance, creation. Johnson Group's crisis finally erupted completely. The fuse was a $5 billion bank loan about to mature. I had personally negotiated that loan a year ago to expand overseas. Back then, the bank bet on my ability and Johnson Group's future prospects. Now that I left, Johnson Group's future had become a pile of crap. The bank naturally reevaluated the risk. They sent a team to Johnson Group to conduct due diligence. The result was predictable, a mess. The bank issued an ultimatum. Either repay immediately or put up the company's core assets as collateral. That idiot Leo was frantic like ants on a hot pan. The only idea he had was robbing Peter to pay Paul. He planned to sell the plot in the East District that the company owned. That land had been left by my mother. It was also the last piece I left for the Johnson Group, the trump card that could turn everything around. Beneath that plot of land, rare earth veins were discovered. Right now, only a few people and I know this. I had been waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Once announced, Johnson Group stock would at least triple. Now Leo was going to sell that underground gold mine as if it were ordinary industrial land for a pittance. When Charlie told me the news, I was at the racetrack. The roar of engines was deafening. I hung up, slammed the gas, and sped onto the track. The tires ripped across the asphalt, emitting a shrill scream. I was venting the long-suppressed fury inside me. My father, he not only destroyed my career, he was also going to destroy the last thing my mother left behind. Lap after lap, until the gas tank hit empty. Only then did I stop the car. I took out my phone and dialed a number. Hello, is this Mr. Robert? Robert was one of the potential buyers for the East District plot. He had also been my father's old rival for years. It's me, Ethan. There was a pause on the other end. Ethan, what made you call this old man? Mr. Robert, I'm offering you a fortune. Are you interested? I leaned against the car door, watching the distant sunset. Oh, tell me more. Go ahead and lowball that East District land. Buy it. I guarantee that within 6 months, its value will astonish you. There was a long silence. Robert was sharp. He knew I wouldn't speak without cause. All right. He said only one word. I trust you. After hanging up, I knew I had placed the final straw on the camel that would crush the Johnson Group. Robert moved quickly. He joined with several other developers to form a buyer's alliance and drove the price of the East District plot down to an outrageously low level. Leo, having no choice but to repay the bank, gritted his teeth and signed the contract. The day the news broke, Johnson Group's stock plunged to the limit. The boardroom erupted. Those directors who had once supported my father and Leo stormed into his office one after another, demanding an explanation. My father was in tatters. Leo was so frightened he hid at home and didn't dare go out. As for me, I was sitting in my new company's office, leisurely sipping coffee. My new company was called Nirvana Capital. The meaning was obvious: rebirth through fire. Outside the office's floor-to-ceiling windows stood the Johnson Group building. Seen from here, the once glorious building looked somewhat dim. Mr. Ethan, Charlie knocked and came in. They're all here. I nodded. Let them in. The door opened. Thomas, head of the tech department, let a dozen former Johnson Group executives in. They looked at me with eyes full of excitement, sentiment, and a hint of relief. Mr. Ethan, we're not too late, are we? Thomas asked with a smile. Not late. I smiled back. Everything is just beginning. We held a brief meeting and confirmed the company's future direction. These people are the ones I trust most, and they're my most capable comrades. With them here, I'm confident that within half a year, I can build another. Surpass Johnson Group. The meeting ended. Charlie came back in. His expression was a little strange. Mr. Ethan, downstairs, your father and Leo are here. They want to see you. I raised an eyebrow. Couldn't wait that long? Let them wait, I said. When I have time, I'll go down to see them. Charlie nodded and left. I continued handling the papers in front of me, as if the two waiting downstairs were nothing more than unimportant salesmen. 1 hour, 2 hours, until it got dark. Only then did I slowly take the elevator down. In the company lobby, my father and Leo were still standing there, like two statues gazing into the distance. When they saw me come down, my father's eyes instantly filled with tears. He rushed over in a few strides and grabbed my arm. Ethan, tell your father what's going on with that plot of land in the East District. Dad, didn't you already sell it? I said indifferently. Why still worry about it? Didn't you know something all along? My father's voice was trembling. Yes. I admitted it. I knew there was a mountain of gold under it. A mountain of gold that could make Johnson Group brilliant for another 50 years. And you handed it over to your enemy with your own hands. My father swayed. His face instantly drained of color. W.I. he muttered. Why didn't you tell me? I told you. I looked at him. I told you to kick that idiot out. You didn't listen. I shrugged off his hand. Leo, standing nearby, looked stunned. He probably only now realized how big a mess he'd made. Dad, he tried to support my father, but my father slapped him hard across the face. Get out. You curse on my family. My father shouted hysterically, pointing at him. Then he turned and looked at me. With a thud, he knelt down. Ethan, Dad was wrong. Please, save Johnson Group. Save me. He clung to my leg, tears streaming down his face like a gambler with nowhere to turn. My father knelt before me, cried like a child. Around us, employees who hadn't left yet watched from afar. In their eyes were shock, sympathy, and a hint of satisfaction. George, the man who had dominated the business world his whole life, had finally reached the day of begging. I didn't immediately help him up. From above, I just looked down at him. Dad, do you know? Before Mom died, She held my hand and made me promise to protect Johnson Group. She said it was your life's work. I promised her. For the past 10 years, I kept that promise. I brought Johnson Group to a new height. I thought you'd be proud of me. Instead, you brought home a bastard. You said the company needed humanity. You denied everything I did in front of all the directors. At that moment, I thought, what damn life's work? What damn promises? To hell with them. My voice was not loud, but it was like a hammer striking my father's heart blow after blow. His body trembled even more violently. I was wrong. Ethan, I really was wrong. He repeated over and over, only able to say that one sentence. Beside him, Leo had long since gone pale. He looked at me with eyes full of terror. It was probably the first time he had seen this side of me, and the first time he realized what kind of person he had messed with. It's too late to say that now. I withdrew my legs from his arms. Johnson Group is beyond saving. No, it can still be saved. My father lifted his head, the redness in his eyes clinging to a final thread of hope. As long as you come back, everything still has a chance. A chance. I laughed. What will you use to pay back the bank loans? What will you use to buy back the land in East District? What will you use to bring back the lost clients and talent? Dad, don't be naive. The Johnson Group ship has already sunk. Even if I were a god, I couldn't save it. My father's gaze went utterly dim. He slumped to the floor as if all his strength had been drained away. What do we do? He murmured. My life's work. There is one more way. I looked at him and spoke slowly. What way? A flicker of light rekindled in his eyes. Bankruptcy liquidation, I said. Let Nirvana Capital acquire all of Johnson Group's quality assets. My father suddenly jerked his head up and stared at me in disbelief. You want to absorb Johnson Group? Not absorb. I corrected him. Rebirth. In my hands, it will become what it was meant to be. Not dragged into the abyss by an idiot and an old man blinded by guilt. My father looked at me, his lips trembling, unable to speak. I knew this condition hurt him more than killing him would. It meant he would have to personally erase the Johnson Group he had been proud of from this world, then turn it into Ethan's stepping stone. Think it over. I didn't look at him again. I turned and walked toward the elevator. All right. Reaching the elevator entrance, I stopped and glanced back at them. Forgot to tell you. After Robert bought that piece of land in East District, he flipped it to me at double the price. So that gold mine is mine now. With that, I stepped into the elevator and pressed the close button. The elevator doors slowly shut, cutting off the two completely despairing faces outside. The initiative of the script had been in my hands from the start. They were merely two clowns I had arranged on a whim. My father eventually agreed to my plan. He had no choice. Better to let Johnson Group live on in another form than to be torn apart by banks and creditors, even if it meant losing face. The next month, I became the busiest person. Nirvana Capital officially launched the acquisition of Johnson Group at a fair but not exorbitant price. I personally led the team to liquidate and restructure Johnson Group's assets. The board members who had once bossed me around now trailed behind me like grandchildren, kowtowing. Their shares had depreciated in this crisis to almost worthless paper. Their only hope was that I would show some mercy and, after taking over, leave them a little to live on. Of course I wouldn't. I cleared them out, along with the vermin they had planted in the company, leaving none behind. Leo vanished the day after my father signed the agreement. I heard my father gave him some money to go abroad and never come back. Fine by me. Out of sight, out of mind. As for my father, he handed over all his shares and retired. Overnight, he aged a decade. He moved back to the old house and sat alone in the empty rooms. I never went to see him even once. Some things, when they go wrong, are beyond being fixed by an apology. When the dust settled, I stood on the top floor of the Johnson Group building in my former office. Outside the window, the city glittered with a million lights. Charlie stood behind me. Mr. Ethan, from today on, this place is Johnson again, he said emotionally. No, I shook my head. From today on, this place bears only my name. I turned to him. Take down the Johnson Group sign. Replace it with Nirvana. Charlie froze for a moment, then nodded emphatically. Yes. I sat back down in the chair that belonged to me, the CEO's seat. It felt completely different from before. Back then I was fighting for my father, for my mother's dying wish. Now I was only fighting for myself. My phone on the desk buzzed. A message from Sophia. Congratulations, Mr. Ethan. I smiled and replied with 2 words. Likewise. The fee I paid her was enough to let her stride through the entertainment industry. We were, in a sense, both winners. Free to grab a drink sometime? She sent. No time, I replied. The company's just been reorganized. There's a lot to do. Unlike some people who can wander and play wherever they like. After sending it, I tossed the phone aside. Women? Love? Huh. That kind of thing only slows down my ability to make money. The next hot trend is building an empire. That's the game a man should be playing. Robert invited me for tea at his private tea house. Antique and elegant. Ethan, you played that beautifully, he said, personally pouring me a cup of European-style black tea. The aroma filled the air. You took the whole Johnson Group without shedding blood. The new wave replaces the old, he added. I smiled. You flatter me, Mr. Robert. If you hadn't helped, it wouldn't have gone so smoothly. I merely pushed with the current, I said. Robert waved a hand. Even if you hadn't told me, I'd have suspected something was wrong with that parcel of land. I just didn't expect it to be such a mountain of gold. You kid, you hit it deep. I lifted the cup and took a sip. Business is like war. You have to keep an ace up your sleeve. True, Robert nodded, looking at me with a hint of admiration. You're stronger than your father. He was too sentimental and too concerned with face. That's a fatal flaw in business. I said nothing. I knew he was right. But this time you've really offended him. Robert changed tone. From now on, you and your father, I don't care. I interrupted. We're on different paths. We won't work together. Robert sighed. You take after your mother. Appearing easygoing, but stubborn to the core. Hearing him mention my mother, the hand holding my teacup paused for a moment. You know my mother? More than just know her. Robert's gaze drifted to the window, as if recalling something. Back then, your father, your mother, and I grew up together. At that time, your father wasn't Mr. George yet. Just a poor kid. There were people lining up from one end of the street to the other to court your mother. Among them was me. I froze. I had never heard my father mention any of this. Unfortunately, in the end, your mother still chose your father. Robert smiled, a hint of an indescribable wistfulness in it. She said your father had a kind of never-give-up spirit. She liked that. Later, they started from scratch and founded Johnson Group. As for me, I inherited my family's business. We became business rivals and enemies in matters of the heart. He turned to look at me. Ethan, do you know? Your mother saw me for the last time before she died. She asked me to keep an eye on your father from then on. She said your father is someone who easily gets muddled, especially when it comes to love. Looking back now, she really was prophetic. I was silent. It felt like something was blocking my chest. So my mother had seen through everything long ago. Mr. Robert. I put down my teacup and looked at him. Thank you for telling me this. It's nothing. Robert waved his hand. I just don't want to see you follow your father's old path. Remember, Ethan, the most unreliable thing in this world is feelings. Only the strength you hold in your hands is real. I nodded. I'll remember. After leaving the tea room, the sky had already darkened. I stood by the roadside watching the stream of traffic. Suddenly, I felt a little lonely. Nirvana Capital was moving fast. I used thunderous measures to consolidate Johnson Group's quality assets. I cut all unprofitable and uncertain projects. Then I focused all funds into 2 directions. One was new energy. The other was artificial intelligence. These were the future's hotspots. I knew that. The company's employees worked overtime every day, but no one complained because I gave too much. Bonuses, equity incentives, nothing was spared. I only demanded results. They gave me results. I gave them returns far exceeding our peers. It was fair. That day, I was holding a meeting about AI chip development. My secretary knocked and came in. Mr. Ethan, a Miss Olivia is here to see you. She says she doesn't have an appointment. Miss Olivia? The first name that flashed through my mind was Sophia. But if it were her, she would call me directly. Have her wait. I didn't look up. The meeting continued. An hour later, the meeting ended. I returned to my office. A woman was sitting on the sofa. Not Sophia, a stranger. But that face seemed somewhat familiar. Hello, Mr. Ethan. The woman stood and extended her hand. My name is Olivia Miller. Olivia Miller. I didn't shake her hand. I just stared at her. I remembered. Her brows and eyes bore a certain resemblance to that Leo. You are? Leo's. I'm his sister. Olivia Miller smiled and withdrew her hand. Same mother, different father. I raised an eyebrow. Something you need? My brother caused you trouble, she said. He's young and foolish. I apologize on his behalf. Her posture was very humble, but I don't fall for that. No need to apologize, I said. I've already driven him away. This matter ends here. I hope you won't ever appear in front of me again. Mr. Ethan, you misunderstand. Olivia Miller shook her head. I didn't come to plead today. I came to discuss a collaboration. Collaboration? I laughed. What could we possibly have to collaborate on? I know you're investing in new energy vehicles. Olivia Miller looked at me, her eyes flashing with confident light. And I have something you desperately need. Oh, I was interested. Tell me. The latest solid-state battery technology, she said. It's at least 5 years ahead of anything currently on the market. My pupils constricted sharply. Solid-state batteries. This is the next technological singularity in new energy vehicles. Whoever controls, it controls the future. How do you have this technology? Because the inventor of this technology, Olivia Miller paused, speaking each word deliberately, is my mother, and also Leo's biological mother. I let Olivia Miller sit down and personally poured her a glass of water. What does your mother do? I asked. She's a physicist, Olivia Miller said. She spent her life working with batteries. Her greatest wish was to develop a battery that was safe, efficient, and environmentally friendly. One that would fundamentally change the world's energy landscape. Unfortunately, she didn't live to see that day. Olivia Miller's eyes dimmed briefly. When she passed, the solid-state battery tech had only completed theoretical construction and preliminary lab validation. Further development requires massive funding. She set a thick folder on the table. These are all the research materials she left behind. I've looked for many investors, she continued. But they either thought the risk was too high or wanted to buy the tech outright for a pittance. I refused. This is my mother's life's work. I can't let short-sighted businessmen sully it. I looked at her in silence. A respectable idealist. Then why come to me? I asked. Because you're different from them. Olivia Miller met my gaze. I investigated you. Though you're ruthless, you have vision. Every decision you make isn't just for the moment, and you're willing to invest. Most importantly, she smiled, we share a common enemy. I understood. She was talking about my father. When my mother was with George, she didn't know he had a family. Olivia Miller's tone was very calm. By the time she found out, Leo had already been born. George gave her money to have an abortion and then left. My mother didn't take his money. She single-handedly gave birth to Leo. She did research while raising us siblings. She worked very hard. Leo was called a bastard since he was young. He always felt inferior and resentful. He wanted to prove himself to earn George's approval. So when George found him and said he would take him back to the Johnsons, that's why he so easily believed him. He thought it was belated fatherly love. He didn't know it was just an old man's selfish farce to assuage his guilt. That farce ruined him and nearly ruined you. Olivia Miller looked at me. So, Mr. Ethan, let's cooperate. I'll provide the technology, you provide the money and the platform. Together we'll realize this technology. Then we'll build an energy empire greater than Johnson Group. Let George see properly what he missed back then. I looked at Olivia Miller. I had to admit, I was moved. Her proposal hit exactly where I wanted. Solid-state batteries were a field I had always wanted to touch, but had been deterred from by technical barriers. Now she had handed me the key. And with it came a revenge script I couldn't refuse. I need to see the full technical documentation and lab data, I said. Also, I want to hire a third-party team for evaluation. Fine. Olivia Miller was decisive. Technology isn't afraid of verification. How about the terms? I only want 30% of the tech shares, she said. The rest is all yours. I have one condition. The company's naming rights must use my mother's name in the future. I nodded. Deal. We stood and shook hands. No contract, no lawyers. But we both knew this verbal agreement was sturdier than any paper, because it was built on a shared goal and a shared hatred. Olivia Miller left. I sat alone in the office, staring at the night outside the window. A long-forgotten excitement rose in my chest. The struggle with George and Leo was over. That had only been a child's warm-up game. The real game was just beginning. My opponents were no longer those foolish, emotion-driven family members. They were the top players in this era, in this world. I took out my phone, thought for a moment, and sent a message to someone, Sophia, interested in being the spokesperson for my new company, the kind that will one day be worth hundreds of billions. She replied quickly, "Sure, Mr. Ethan, but my endorsement fee is very expensive." I smiled. Expensive? The most expensive thing in this world has never been money. It's opportunity. It's the future. And I will be the one distributing that future. I stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the brilliantly lit city at my feet. Nirvana. What a good name. The old is dead. The new is being reborn in flame.